Hello, everyone. I'm Tom White, the sports editor at the Virginian-Pilot, and I'm here with ODU Football beat writer turned columnist Harry Minium. And before Harry changes gears,
and that would be next week, yes,
and becomes the sports columnist of the Pilot, we thought we'd pick his brain a little bit and look ahead to signing day and the Old Dominion's prospects. And signing day, everyone knows, is the first Wednesday of February. That would be tomorrow. So let's get right to it, Harry. And we understand from your reporting that ODU had signed, 21
They have
kids?
22 commitments actually overall, and they are, the last couple of years, they've had some unhappy surprises on signing day. They've lost 2, 3, 4 kids who have signed with other schools, and I would not be surprised if it happens this season as well, just from the banter I'm seeing on some of the message boards from fans who are close to recruiting to some of what I see on some of the recruiting services. They got a couple of kids who should be inviting the Power 5 schools. Matt LaRoche, running back from Venice, Florida, second in voting for Mr. Florida in the state of Florida.
And that's a football state.
Yeah, and that's a football state. And he, Old Dominion and Georgia Southern were his only FBS offers. I hear some other schools have come in.
And that happens all of a sudden. Kids have no offers, they have no offers, and then a week before signing day or a month before, things really start to snowball.
Yes, it does. And what happens is with the Power 5 schools, the Virginia Techs, and Notre Dame's, they'll come in and they'll feed off of Old Dominion, Temple, schools like that, and take recruits from them. And in return, Old Dominion will go down to some FCS schools or maybe some Sunbelt schools and snatch recruits away.
Well, correct
from
me if
them.
I'm wrong, but as you see these kids, these big-time kids who say, okay, I've got four teams on my finalist list, and as he picks a school, there's three schools that just lost a kid they wanted.
Exactly.
They then start looking at places like Old Dominion for that next layer of kid.
And there's a player in Waldorf, Maryland, Kason Wilson, really good linebacker, great highlights. Turned down Air Force, Navy, Appalachian State, Temple to commit to ODU. You follow these kids on Twitter, and he appears solid for Old Dominion. He appears like he loves the school. But if a Power 5 school comes in, who knows what's going to happen with
You never know until that signature gets
And
down.
there's one other kid that Old Dominion is involved in. His name is Amari Colbert. He's a 2-star wide receiver from Georgia. He is committed to Western Kentucky. He decommitted to Western Kentucky last Saturday. He visited ODU this past weekend. I can't find out whether he committed to ODU or not, but I hear Power 5 schools are moving on him, and that's
Right at the last minute.
That's kind of the way it goes.
Well, up until now, what is your sense of the class? And again, you can't tell who's going to follow through and who's not, but based on the committed kids, how highly is the class regarded?
Not really very highly, quite frankly, and it rated 9th by 247 Sports, and that is the only recruiting service that really covers all of Conference USA and covers it well. 9th out of 14 teams, not great. But I think you with that said, you should understand that the STAR system and these recruiting services, it's an inexact science, and
to say the least.
Yeah, and it's the best measure we've got, but it's not a great measure. And here's for instance. Marshall in 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016 had the number 1 rated class in Conference USA.
Every year.
In 2013, ODU was 14th. And let me read here. In 2014, they were second. They were 8th in 2015 and 10th in 2016. Okay, so you figure Marshall ought to crush ODU.
This past season.
Yeah, and they didn't. ODU crushed Marshall. A lot of it has to do with it's difficult to judge these kids when they're in high school and in camps. And I think in particular it's difficult to judge kids at the mid-major level because there are not as many eyes on them. And there are also other factors. Old Dominion is good at developing its players, but there's some kids at ODU: Boonley Rutimi, Travis Soljem, Nick Clark, some of ODU's best players. No other FBS.
I think you make a great point there that at the mid level is where it really gets hard to figure how good these kids are.
Yeah.
I've read some extensive reports that have been done, maybe SI or somebody like that, where they said we make fun of the star rankings, but at the top levels, the top 20, say the top 25 teams that are ranked, they do tend to do really well, and that's the upper end of the talent sphere. I think when you get down to the middle, as you said, it gets a little bit more iffy.
Well, and you have Schuler Bentley. He was rated a 4-star recruit by 247. Now he was not a rivals and the other services didn't rate him a 4-star, but Schuler, good player, and I hope he does well at Murray State. For whatever reason, it didn't work out here, and that happens sometimes. Some of ODU's most highly recruited players haven't worked out, and some of the walk-ons have turned out to be some of their best players. Yeah.
Well, the Monarchs return, I believe, 16 starters.
They do
next year. So immediate help in most of the areas isn't really a priority.
No.
But that's not the case at quarterback. And so let's go right to Jordan Hoy. He's the junior college quarterback out of Southern California.
Yes. Well, and let's give people a little background. David Washington has been the quarterback this past season. Great job. David had an unbelievably good season. I think he was the MVP of the team, and they're going to have a difficult time replacing him. The two candidates at ODU right now are Blake LaRussa, redshirt. He'll be a redshirt sophomore next season from Bishop Sullivan, and Drayton Arnold. He'll be a redshirt freshman from Myrtle Beach. Both good, solid quarterbacks. A little short for FBS standards, but I think they would be good serviceable quarterbacks for ODU, and maybe better. Who knows? Drayton and Blake have at times looked really good in practice. Now, that's just practice. We don't know how good they're going to be, but that's just practice. Hoy, on the other hand, he was a 3-star recruit in high school in Rockwall, Texas. For whatever reasons, he winds up at Montana State, an FCS school. Kid transfers in from Washington, who's obviously going to start, so he transfers to Fullerton College in California, where he puts up unbelievably good numbers. 246 pass receptions, pass completions, for 3,434 yards, school record 37 touchdowns, led his school to its first state championship in junior college football in 33 years, was named the Southern California Offensive Player of the Year, and that's in part because he rushed for 712 yards and 9 touchdowns. He's got great speed, good arm strength, the leader of the team. On paper he looks good, but this is junior college.
Well, 37 TDs and 6 interceptions. That mix is a great mix. And you got to remember, there's a kid who played junior college ball and put up big numbers. You had the same questions about, well, does it transfer? And that would have been Jared Evans at Virginia Tech. He had a pretty good season. He led them to a pretty good season. Not that Hoy is a Jared Evans, but it does show you the kind of talent that there is at that junior college level.
And I think this is a recruiting steal for ODU. For whatever reason, he wasn't recruited by a lot of four-year schools this year. I think that's in part because he was a freshman. He could come back for his sophomore year, and most junior college players do go back for their sophomore year. I think his only other offer was Coastal Carolina. I think Nevada got involved with him a little bit, but that's a good get for Old Dominion if he follows through and signs. And from looking at his Twitter account, I'm looking at 20 Twitter accounts these days. He's solid on ODU for right now.
You think Bobby Wilder's looking at 20 Twitter accounts
or
more?
I think he and his entire coaching staff are looking.
Well, beyond Hoy, which other recruits look like they're capable of stepping in and having immediate impact, either as freshmen or maybe as redshirt freshmen in 2 years?
There are a lot of kids who could step in right away and play. The problem is that ODU redshirts its freshmen, and they've got.
You don't want them to.
Yeah, and they've got, 16 starters back and most of the substitutes back. According to 247 Sports, the best player ODU has committed is Tracy White. He's a defensive back from Georgia. ODU returns 20 of 22 defensive backs. He's not going to play next season, obviously. Kason Wilson, I think, is a guy who could play. They have, an obvious needed linebacker. They lost their 2 starters, and they lost 2 key backups, and they're not sure about Isaiah Worthy's status for next season. Derek Wilder is coming off injury. A couple of ankle sprains, so they have a lot of freshmen they redshirted, but they may need Wilson to play right away, and he may be capable of it.
What about the local haul? Do you are there some kids from the 757 who are showing up on the commitment list?
They've got 3. Austin Wood, he's a wide receiver from Grassfield, and Larry Rabama tells me he had a really good season. He's a really good player. He was a good get for them. Cameron Washington, a defensive end from Tallwood, not very highly recruited, but I know people in the ODU program who really think highly of him, and I know the Tallwood coach thinks he's got a lot of
potential.
Yeah, a lot of potential. And there's a kid named Janesh Jordan from Bethel High School in Hampton. Interesting player, 300 pounds, running back, and and defensive tackle. They recruited him as a defensive tackle, but you have to wonder, could he wind up playing tight end or H-back, or is he just a defensive tackle?
Or a goal line running back.
Yes. They got a lot of size in this class and a lot of linemen. So they've got a lot of kids that are going to develop. They got, I believe, 5 defensive linemen and 3 offensive linemen, kids who are not going to play for a couple of years.
Is there a player on the commitment list who kind of strikes you as intriguing in a particular way, or an under-the-radar kid who you think, I'm reading some things that are really interesting about this kid?
LaRoche from Venice, Florida. I don't know where he was on the recruiting scale. He just sort of appeared out of nowhere, and you look at his highlights and you look at his speed and you just think, wow, this kid he's going to play. He's going if he signs with ODU and if he qualifies, he's going to play right away at wide receiver, at running back, at
return guy.
I mean, he's just really good. And he is a no-star recruit, if you can believe that. Second in voting for Mr. Florida football. Wow. And a no-star recruit. The other kid who's really intriguing is DeAndre Woods. He's a tight end from Vanderbilt who's transferring. 3-star player in high school in Birmingham. Had some problems at Vanderbilt, mostly injury problems. He did not play a lot. He's 6'3", 240 pounds. Great highlights in high school. Old Dominion has lacked depth at tight end. I mean, he and Melvin Vaughn, if this kid avoids injuries and develops like he says he's going to, he says he's really hungry to start over for a second chance, really wants to play, that could be a really good get for ODU.
He could be a difference maker.
And as far as 247 is concerned, he doesn't count because he's a transfer. So, you got 2 of ODU's, really good players who don't count on the ratings. So like I said, it's an inexact science.
They're not traditional signing day kids.
Yeah.
Well, as always, Harry, we thank you for your insight on the team and the expected guys who are going to be signing tomorrow. I'd encourage you to keep an eye on pilotonline.com through Tuesday night.
And go to ODU Blitz for all the ODU coverage. I'm still putting out blogs sort of looking back at 2016 and looking ahead at 2017.
And that's today and through tomorrow. We'll have updates and stuff through the day as guys sign, and we'll have a list on there, etc. And not only on ODU, but also Virginia Tech, Virginia, and Norfolk State. So it's a big day all around the Commonwealth. So thanks to Harry and to our production crew of one, Randy Greenwell.
Thank you, Randy.
Thanks for his efforts, and everyone enjoy signing day.